Last week on The Balanced Voice, we spoke with Andrew Tesmere, a certified queer and trans-affirming professional. This week, we continue our discussion about LGBTQ safety with an outspoken advocate, Barrett Pall.
The reason why I made that specific, title or tagline to that series was that I think it's important for straight men to really sit back and realize we don't need you the way that you have tried to make us feel like we need you in an oppressive system. We can want you, we can invite you. I want to have those friends in my life, right? Like I love those men in my life. But when it comes to this idea that we need them, right? Like I don't believe anyone really needs anyone else. But then we hear this oppressive idea of like, you need us to procreate and keep the whole level of humanity alive. And it's like, well, technically, queer men also have the same reproductive system as you, and we can use it the same way that you do. We are now, for the first time in possibly history, getting to watch women thrive in a way that they have never, ever had the opportunity because they don't need their husband's permission to get a job or a credit card, right? That need no longer is there.
Barrett Pall is a Jewish queer professional life coach who has worked with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, celebrities, Middle Eastern royalty, and everyday incredible humans. Beyond his formal career, he has utilized his social media influence to educate on some of the most egregious issues facing at-risk populations, including children, the queer community, young models, and so many others. In today's discussion, Rania and Jenn dive deep with Barrett about some pretty hot topics. This is the Balanced Voice podcast.
So I'm so excited for today's guests. I have been following Barrett Pall for some time and just very intrigued at how sort of honest you are, and you're just saying things as they are, like you.
Less the curse words. Does he use curse words?
I don't hear it. We have to bleep her quite a bit. And then this Balenciaga scandal happened, and I couldn't believe how open Barrett was, and he's shared his personal story, being in the modeling career, and I know you're visiting us from beautiful California. The sun is like shining on you. We're in gloomy Houston, but we're so happy to have you because I think everything you're doing is fabulous and we really appreciate it. Barrett, let's start at the beginning. How long have you been a model? How'd you get in the industry? I've read everything about your story, but just share a little bit about it.
Sure. So I was 19 when I first got into the modeling industry. I went to NYU. I was senior class president. Like that was why I was in New York City. But my friends were like, you could do this. And I was like, I don't know, you guys. I don't know. And they were like, just send your pictures in. So we took like digital camera photos against a white wall in my dorm room, sent them in, and ended up hearing from agencies. And I started modeling while I was in school. I let my agents know that like school was the number one priority for me. It was not going to be like, I'm going to miss class for a casting. And then I graduated. And I was like, I don't want to do what I thought I was going to do, which was like law school and like kind of your standard track of, what we were told success is. So I moved to LA and had a very interesting ride in LA. And then while I was there for 2.5 years, realized that this industry was just not the industry for me. So I left and moved back to New York.
Barrett, why wasn't that industry the industry for you?
Sadly, I felt like I needed to sell my soul. And I think people hear that and they're like, the Illuminati and this. I'm like, no, it's like you have to give up your boundaries and you have to give up your like well-being, in my opinion, to make it a certain distance in the entertainment / modeling industry. And I hope that's not true for everyone, but I know that there's a lot of really sad stories that a lot of people in the industry have, and they haven't gotten to speak about it because they're still very much attached to the industry. And so
I think that's why you've gained so much steam, because you are talking about it very openly, very freely. And if you're not following Barrett Pall on, I follow him on Instagram, but he's also on YouTube, and we'll link all of your channels here. But I think it's important that people are following you and hearing what you're talking about, because you're very open about what happened to you and what happens to others in the industry.
Yeah. I ended up getting back into the industry when I moved back to New York, and it was more on my terms. And that felt different because, originally I had gone looking to be a part of it, but then I had these agents reaching out to me being like, we saw this photo shoot you did, which was kind of like my effort photo shoot. Like, I'm done. I want photos from when I'm young so I can look back and go, okay, I was cute at one point. And then it kind of took on a different journey for me. And that's when social media really started to grow. And I understood, because of my degree, that like this was going to be a tool the way a lot of people hadn't seen really up until recently. And so that was interesting because I was able to kind of navigate my career on my own terms, but I still wasn't like just a traditional model. It was more of like the social media with the traditional modeling. And throughout my, I guess, 19, I'm 35 now. I say I'm technically retired from the industry, but if something was to pop up that aligned with me and that was like not a bad thing, or, if something comes up and it aligns, then I'd be open to it. But that really hasn't happened in anytime recently. So I've continued to stand with the modeling industry in some capacity so that I can make it better. I'm on this thing called the Models Alliance. I'm a council member, and we are looking to pass actual legislation to make the industry safer for the people in the industry, and not just models, but the people who make the clothes, the whole supply chain, just everything that is attached to the industry, because it's quite predatory on many different levels, unfortunately.
So, I mean, you see things like, you see people like Gwyneth Paltrow, who's come out and why she's exited. And then you saw what Brooke Shields just came out, right? With her, what did you think of their stances? Totally in agreement with what they're saying is happening in this industry?
Yeah, I think sadly, again, we're going to hear a lot more women speak out because women are finally getting a chance to have their voices heard. And they're the ones who have been notoriously preyed upon since they were very, very young. Brooke Shields was a baby when she got into this industry. She had no choice. Gwyneth Paltrow comes from a very famous family. She really didn't have a choice either. And we're watching the Nepo babies right now continue to rise to very big success because it's easy. But I also know that for a lot of them behind the scenes, it's probably not all glamour as well.
Barrett, you shared your story that you as a young emerging model were sexually assaulted in a photo shoot by allegedly by a prominent photographer. And you share your story very openly. And one of the things you said is, you almost look back at those pictures and see them as a representation of you losing your innocence. And that if we look at them, we can almost see that in the pictures, which is just, it breaks my heart. You also said it was very normal in the industry. And yet you felt like I have no choice. You can't, the article you said, I came from a, hard upbringing. There wasn't a lot of wealth in the family growing up. So you were holding on to a talent that you had that paid you well, as you should hold on to a talent you have that pays you well, so you can establish a career and have a life. But then, you look at your story, you look at Gwyneth Paltrow's stories, you're saying prominent. It seems like this is just rampant in the industry.
For an industry that supposedly stands up for all kinds of social rights, which is like oxymoronic.
It doesn't make
so frustrating.
Any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been very vocal about recently, and I have been for a while, is that while we see the glamorous side of it and we think that there's a lot of money in it, there's a lot of money in it for a very small percentage of the people in the industry. Majority of the work that I did was actually for free, with the thought and the kind of like the carrot on the string idea that while you are building your book, building your profile, building your name, and people are getting to know you, you will be able to have this huge career that is super lucrative and super successful. And in my brain, that was always to help my family. Like, again, I'm very open. I was evicted from 4 homes growing up with my family. We were not well off. There was a sense of responsibility as the oldest to try and help the family the way that I think many young people feel with their families. And so when you have these people make all these promises to you and tell you that you're going to have the world and you're a baby, 19 is technically a legal adult, but I was 19 when I got into the industry. I was a baby. Like anyone who's like around my age or older knows that 19 is a child. And you don't have anyone really looking out for you. And you think your agents and your managers are going to be those people. And they build this sense of trust with you the way that predators do, and tell you, this is what you need to do. This is what's normal. This is, again, the grooming essentially of it all, which a lot of people I don't even think realize starts kind of the second you walk in the door and you're made to feel like you should be so grateful that they want to even talk to you. Meanwhile, it's like without the talent, there's no industry. So it's a very interesting cycle of abuse. And I say abuse, and I use that word very specifically because that's what the industry is to majority of the people in it. And
what's so interesting is if you look at that compared to the corporate world, right? Like decades past, we would have like interns that came into our corporations, and they were like free internships back. But then about 20 years ago, like that moved away. Like you don't have somebody come and provide labor for you and not pay them. It's a form of labor trafficking, really.
But yet,
and Hollywood's supposed to be like the future forward, the innovators, the show you what the future looks like in movies and media. But they're way back here and expecting you to do things for free. Like it's like that's a form of labor trafficking.
I see both sides of it, because back when Barrett was 19, now you're in your 30s. So we're talking a few years ago. Social media wasn't giving every single person a platform, an opportunity to show their talents. So honestly, there were very few options to go to if you had this desire to be on some type of national or international stage.
Right. The only place, what I'm saying, I guess, is why are they so far behind?
Yeah.
They're just so far behind in what the good social, healthy norms are. They've gotten away with it.
It's intentional, right? When you have been able to do something and not change, you're going to keep doing it. And then you're going to use performative activism or performative actions or whatever else you want to call it to act like, look, we care. Here's a campaign about the environment. Here's a campaign about standing with the women in Me Too. Here's a campaign for whatever other social justice situation is on trend right now. And I use trend very much with like a heavy heart, because that's essentially what a lot of this has become for corporations when they're looking to make money and they know that this is what people are talking about. We saw a huge shift in something like body positivity and body neutrality a couple of years ago. And now we're watching the models walk down the runway in these low rise, very, very, very skimpy little jeans that we saw in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And we've had conversations about how those really were a huge reason, the fashion itself, why so many people had eating disorders.
Yeah, that's right.
And now we're just going back to it again as if that was not a conversation. It's like, the conversations had, we know what needs to change. Tiny little performative things make a shift. And then it just goes right back to where it was, because the actual people who are in charge do not change. They get rid of the easy people to get rid of that are replaceable. But the people who are in charge of these big publications, these big fashion houses, are the same people.
Well, and then they want to sit on these platforms and talk about the environment, which they are offenders of as well. But that's the E part of the SG, but then they forget about the S. Like where's the S part of exactly what you're talking about, is how to treat humans well. And I can't even fit my one ankle into those damn jeans.
And then the conversation becomes, I have 3 daughters, is, what is a healthy body image as defined by the fashion industry, when super skinny girls or super skinny boys are not healthy, but super overweight individuals are now glorified. And I'm just sharing like an average conversation at home. We don't know. And yet we look to the industry for some answers. What is beauty? What is right? What is healthy? And it's interesting to hear you talk about it, because you are right. And I've never really stopped to think about it. The same people have sat at the head for decades.
Yeah.
And yet they decide what kind of conversation will pop up, what's good, what's bad. And we kind of just all go along with it. I've never, ever really thought about it that way.
Yeah. It's oxymoronic. I mean, it literally is.
Yeah. And, the thing specifically about something like body positivity, and like everybody is different, and you should figure out what works for you with your doctors and your family, and figure out what feels healthy and good. It's like a feeling, right? It shouldn't be a look or a number or a size. But unfortunately, again, the people who are in these positions of power have watched the trends and the cycles, and they know exactly how it works. It's almost like every 10 years we see the same thing pop up over and over.
Yeah.
And I consistently talk about the fashion industry, but I also stand up for women's rights. I stand for children's safety. I stand for queer rights, because there's a lot of intersectionality amongst all of them. Right. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't really understand, that I hope to convey in these conversations, is that as superfluous as the modeling industry may sound to many people, and it's like, pretty people problems, this industry is that sets the tone for everyone else in society, and where we look to and the ideas of how we're supposed to exist. Look, it's dangerous truly for everyone. And they take people like me at a very young age, or who are in need of help, who are in need of financial gain in what I thought was going to be a quick way when it was not. And they use us and abuse us to make everyone else feel used and abused. And then the cycle repeats with the next generation. And I'm just so over it. And I really want to see shift and change. And that's why I'm working with proper legislation so that they do have accountability.
Let's talk about what you're doing with children, because I know you share a lot on the protection, the exploitation of children. Of course, the heart of the Balenciaga scandal was exploitation of children. And whether it was a mistake or not, I don't know how the average person looks at it, and it seems very intentional. I don't know how so many people could overlook so many red flags, but
like physical visible signs.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
But
ridiculous.
Then sometimes I think, is that really the documents that were sitting on the floor? Did they really intentionally?
They got the documents.
Those documents
on the table. I mean, it's crazy.
Like, it's so overt. It doesn't even seem realistic.
But you talk about children and the industry. You know, you share posts like this recent one you shared about how many people are commenting on little girls. Barrett, I can't. I just want to die. I want to die. I just can't. And there's no way to stop this, really. But tell me, what are you finding, and what can we do?
Yeah, so this series that I had, where I essentially show the name and faces of adult men and what their comments are on young, usually women's profiles, but this is happening amongst young children. I'm not going to say it's just one gender that are experiencing this, is that, you know, there's not really, again, an accountability to stopping the spread of this and protecting children. And as a young person that went through something like this in a very public way, but didn't really have anyone protecting me because it was more hidden because social media wasn't a thing, to blatantly see it feels like a slap across the face to me. And I think many other people, I imagine Brooke Shields, Gwyneth Paltrow, again, people like this that are speaking out now. I'm very grateful for that. And I just realized, like, you know, I have a face that I understand people are going to look at. My modeling career taught me that. This comes from a weird third party perspective of myself, where I look at myself as like an avatar and I'm like, this is my human meat suit. I'm going to use it for something good. I think with, you know, a tool, you have the responsibility to use it for good or evil. And I'm like, let's use this for good while I have it. And I just decided I'm going to show the faces. And again, just the comment, I don't say anything. I put creepy music to it because it's creepy in my opinion. And I just let it play. And I did it once and it went viral. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. And it's catching on in a way that I really hope starts a conversation. And there's incredible other people doing this work. But there was something about the way that I did it that just hit. And I understood that there was the ability to keep this going. And so I kept it going, and it's gained an incredible amount of traction. It's gone viral on every platform. Unfortunately, right now, though, because of the way that I was doing this, I now technically go against the guidelines on something like TikTok, where I'm now showing third-party abuse. So I'm considered abusive. And so my TikTok right now, as we are speaking, has been banned for the 9th time permanently.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So Crime Stoppers, we talk about public safety issues. We talk about sexual exploitation of children, human trafficking, murder. And so when we share solutions,
yes,
TikTok will say that goes against, you know, or Facebook or Instagram, that it goes against their community standards.
Sure. Which is maddening, because you're like, the people doing the actual abuse get to go on and keep doing it. I report content all the time, and it consistently, even when someone's telling like F off in the comment section, I've never had a single thing come back and suggestion is there and they're taking it down. Meanwhile, I experience consistent abuse, harassment, mass reporting, mismoderation, and I have to then do the emotional and mental toll to get it back, to use my energy and time so that I get healthy again and do the work that I'm doing that is meant to protect the people that are actually experiencing the abuse. This is a very, like, again, we could go on so many different journeys with this conversation, but that to me feels like another level of exploitation and abuse in terms of social media, because this is a new technology by standards of time, and we don't have rules and regulations around it. But the amount of free work that we are expected to do to help these platforms grow, and then be used, abused, kicked off of it, to then have to fight to get it back, is exploitation, in my opinion. And I hope more people start to open their minds to that conversation. You know, even if you have 1,000 followers, you're helping the platforms keep people on them where they're making money.
Yeah.
It's essentially a form of work trafficking, and it's messed up. And I hope, again, we get to have these conversations grow so more people go, I don't know why I'm sitting here doing this for free. And even if I'm making, let's say, $5 a day, if you break that down into like the hourly wage, it's below minimum wage. And it's predatory.
Maybe that's where we do like a call to action right now. Maybe this video goes viral and we do a call to action that all the Twitter users or TikTok or Instagram or Facebook write to these organizations and say, this is not okay. You can't continue to hush the voice of those that are trying to help the exploited and continue to labor traffic. Maybe we hit their S in their ESG.
Thank you to our sponsor FlipLock for making this episode possible. FlipLock is a door lock unlike any other lock that was created as a nationwide, straightforward solution to protect your people, whether that be in universities, dorms, daycares, hospitals, or even government buildings. It can be added to nearly any door to keep you and yours safe. We are proud to have such a strong and like-minded sponsor of the Balanced Voice podcast. Check out FlipLock at fliplock.com. That's FLIPLOK.com.
Goals.
I was just going to say, these social media giants are literal giants, and they seem to own every major pocket in every major industry. And upcoming on our podcast is actually Sam Chapman, who lost his son, Sammy, through an interaction on Snapchat. He purchased a pill, 15 cents, delivered to the house. It was laced with fentanyl. Sammy died. They're now part of a group of 60 plus families suing Snapchat in a historic lawsuit. And so we'll be talking to them and 2 other families, hopefully in the next week or 2. But the journey that they've had just to even have conversations on safety with the social media giants has been shocking. I mean, it's really hard because right now, and you said it best, the technology is sort of evolving in our time, real time in front of us, but they're so prominent. They have so much power. We're all in some way addicted to them. Yes, we do everything for free, but we almost feel like we don't live without them anymore. We don't have a voice without them. We don't have significance or a presence or a place in the global space without them. And I think they use that against us.
Absolutely. Again, it's part of the abuse, right? Make you need the abuser. And that way you're like stuck in it, and almost like a Stockholm syndrome. The part for me that feels even more kind of abusive is that I have been a featured Jewish creator on TikTok, meaning that they took like 5 of us for one of the Jewish heritage months and profiled us. I was a consultant on the on DIE, diversity, inclusivity, and equality, in TikTok. Like I worked with the app to make it safer on a consultant level, and I'm not protected. That does not make sense to me.
Wow. That's crazy, actually, when you say, I mean, it is ridiculous. And how was that, by the way, working with them on that?
While it was happening, you're optimistic, you feel good about it. You're like, okay, they're hearing my voice. They're taking time to really consider what I have to say. And it's like a revolving kind of thing where they take, creators who have different identities, and they really want to hear different voices to really think about the different ways to make it accessible and equitable and equal for everyone, but also safe. Now as I sit back and I look at what's happened, I'm just questioning, like, do I even want to fight to get my account back? Or do I just kind of let this be the moment where I go, I did something, maybe make some noise in a different capacity? A lot of people really came to my support when my account was banned about a week ago in a way that I didn't even know, because I was away for the weekend trying to just disconnect. And I came back and I was like, wow, a lot of people made videos on my behalf. Like, that was very overwhelming and like a very supportive, kind way that I've not experienced before. I've been outspoken about a lot of things for a very long time, and it makes you very unpopular to the people who don't want to change. And that's hard, because those people are still people that I'm fighting for. I'm still fighting for everyone to have a better life. And that's why it feels just very draining as you watch these people then get angry with you for one specific little thing, where I'm like, this is so insignificant in the grand of humanity and life and your well-being. I believe in building bridges. I believe in love. That's why I call my follower me. And I hope that's what more people start to realize, is that like all this fighting is just letting the people at the top of the oppression system continue to F us over. I don't know. Am I allowed to curse?
We'll bleep it. It's okay.
Okay. So I have this one thing I want to talk to you. It's a comment and a request. So, when you look at equity, obviously we know, your campaign about why we don't need straight men, for a mother of two straight boys, right, who are very good humans, and we taught them about human rights and social issues, and it's a learning experience for them to understand a queer lifestyle, right? When they've grown up in such a hetero world. And so we work on that, like trying to understand and expand our horizons. I have to tell you that why we don't need straight men is almost, for me, I wouldn't say offensive, but just kind of, as compared to all of your content, like hard for me to listen to, because when we were fighting for women's right, or we continue to fight for women's equity and equality, I see the people with the influence and power, which is the white male, Caucasian male, as allies. If I can bring them to understand why women need equity and why we should be a great voice at the table, I see them as partners and allies rather than my enemy. And so I think for me, just that tagline is really hard for a mother of two straight boys to handle. So I'd love, my request now, before you comment, my request would be like, not all straight men are toxic. It's just some of, what we always believe is just a minority group of people that are extremists that talk in these foul ways about children and people. That's what do you have to say about what I just said?
Sure. All the time. And I make it very well known that some of the best people in my life are straight cisgender men. I was in a fraternity, like some of my best friends come from that. And a lot of them in that are cisgender men, straight men. The reason why I made that specific, title or tagline to that series was that I think it's important for straight men to really sit back and realize we don't need you the way that you have tried to make us feel like we need you in an oppressive system. We can want you. We can invite you. I want to have those friends in my life, right? Like I love those men in my life. But when it comes to this idea that we need them, right? Like I don't believe anyone really needs anyone else. But then we hear this oppressive idea of like, you need us to procreate and keep the whole level of humanity alive. And it's like, well, technically, queer men also have the same reproductive system as you, and we can use it the same way that you do. We are now, for the first time in possibly history, getting to watch women thrive in a way that they have never, ever had the opportunity, because they don't need their husband's permission to get a job or a credit card, right? That need no longer is there. We don't need you. We can want you. I hope you do want to be here with us. I invite you to join this fight with us. That specific word is kind of necessary to make people uncomfortable and realize that comfort zone you sit in is not conducive for you living your best life either, because in this oppressive patriarchal system, white cisgender heterosexual men are also being oppressed, but by the ones that are in power that are wealthy. So it's like this really understanding that you don't hold all the power, who are doing this to all of us. And I hear you. I'm very aware of that conversation. And on another note, I'm sorry, my heart breaks for the people of Iran, and I have very good friends that are there, and the Middle East is a place that's very near and dear to my heart for many different reasons. So I'm sorry that is a part of your daily life and something that you have to think about regularly. I think about all of these things regularly, and my partner's constantly like, you need to just turn it off. I'm like, I can't. How do you turn this off when it's like so prevalent and aware because of things like social media, but also because we should be aware of them?
Absolutely. I think, so I thank you for letting me express that. And I think you're right. I think it takes you back. It is something definitely that catches your eyes, and hopefully men can see that. And I think that there's just this continuous work we have to all do to partner with each other and change it. But do you think it's generational? Do you think, like, I would say in my son, I have a 23-year-old and a 17-year-old son, in their generation, they don't, I don't see them as power mongers. I don't
think it's in the next generation.
I don't think it's in the next generation that, they're, we can do this, people control this. Do you see that? Because maybe we're just old and we don't hang out with young. What do you think?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I believe that the younger generation is being set up, at least, to be worse. And I don't know if you had been a part of my journey before, but about, I don't know, it happened last year in February is when I started to profile who Andrew Tate was, knowing that this person was growing very quickly. And I kind of watched from afar, and then around, I think, started to profile him and be like, this person is dangerous. He had created a very, very abusive but strategic system to get young men hooked to his content with the idea that they were going to be hustlers and making a ton of money through what has been exposed to be a pyramid scheme. And he used them because they're young and naive in a way that all young people are naive to mass, not what's the word I'm looking for, to mass spread his content and his messages. And the thing that I saw from afar about him is that, I'm a life coach properly outside of social media. I do behavioral change as my technical, specialty. Is that he used specific things from life coaching that are 1000% things I agree with. He encouraged people to, get out of your own way. And he used things that resonated. Wow. Yes. And that I would say to my clients. But then he started sprinkling things that were very abusive and started to dehumanize women and started to using the word females a lot. And then it just kept getting ramped up very quickly. And he used a Discord server that was paid to be a part of. And he had his Hustlers University, which I was one of the first people on, I think, social media to really talk about being a pyramid scheme. And he used young, naive boys. I mean, we're talking 10, 11, 12 to pay their way into this, be told that they were going to be hustlers and make a bunch of money, to spread his content. And that was one of the ways that they would be making money because of the way that the systems work within social media. And when you have videos go viral, it's attached to some sort of very low amount of money. And through this, he gained a very big following very fast. And it was very, very subtle to people who didn't know. And I actually am very grateful that a lot of moms do follow me, because a lot of moms heard about him from me first. And they went and had conversations with their children asking, do you even know who this is? And they'd be like, yeah, of course. And it was things like top G, or like, what color is your Bugatti? And those were just little indicators that was their way to kind of troll you as if they were a top G or they had a Bugatti. Like, again, things I don't really care about. And it was scary for me because it was a very quick shift from these young boys who were very impressionable to being,
grooming. He was grooming them.
Exactly. And that's the perfect word. I talked about this. I had an 8-part series that went viral on every platform about this as well. And I started a petition that got over 27,000 signatures, and I presented it to the social media platforms. And it's what helped get him removed from social media. It was months of work, and I'm super grateful for the outcome. He was eventually arrested and put into jail, where he was held for around 5 or 6 months without bail. He's now been released, and I think under home arrest, but he had a lot of things repossessed, and he's going to have a lot of very serious charges against him now that women are able to kind of finally speak their truth without the fear of being retaliated against. Because that's another thing. A lot of these guys like to be like, well, she said it was consensual, and we don't know what the full truth is, especially on social media, if someone's being threatened behind the scenes. And so, the long answer, or I guess the short answer to this long explanation, is that I think the young generation is very, very, very easy to manipulate through things like social media.
I see what you're saying.
And that they are being set up to be even worse than older generations because of the access that we have to one another in different countries where different things are legal. You look at a country like Iran, where they're having mandatory hijab be fought against and the oppression of women. And then you look at men in this country and how that's kind of the way they want to start shifting towards the reaction and treatment of women as well. And it's like, this is backwards thinking, in my opinion. And I think most people would agree with me that, when we start to call women females, that's the beginning of dehumanization. They're no longer a human. We can call any animal that has female chromosomes or biology or whatever it is. I'm not saying this, I think, like the best scientific way you could, a female, dog. Women are women, men can be men, and there's plenty of things in between. But it's scary to see how many young boys are very quick to dehumanize only women. Right? They have no problem saying like, I'm a man and you're a female. I mean, I have friends that are teachers. Like, some of my best friends are the most amazing women, and they're teachers. And there's 3 specifically that I think of. And they've told me that like they will have to deal with these little boys being like, you know, this and this to you, as if they're like some grown adult paying rent. And I'm like, this is genuinely scary to me that this is
I agree with you. I had this conversation with my 23-year-old. And I was like, Andrew Tate's a pimp. No, Andrew Tate's not a pimp. I'm like, no, Andrew Tate's a pimp.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether he's physically holding people and getting paid for them having sex with other people, whatever he's doing is supporting the whole, you know, pimp culture and this whole like, but you're right. Even he didn't clearly see through this guy's grooming.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. So bravo. Thank you, God, for getting him pushed off or whatever is happening to him. I hope he sees the full extent of the law. Now, but I have a question though. If you think that's an attack on women in a sense, which I agree with you, and who we are as women, and this is a little controversial, but you know, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
What about trans men in women's sports? Are you saying you don't stand firmly with trans men going into women's sports? Because I believe that's attack on feminism as well.
Okay. I believe that is such a small percentage of the actual people in sports that we have blown it up really to politicize something that shouldn't be politicized and doesn't affect 99% of the sport. You know, the one person I really think of is the swimmer that had all that attention focused in on them, and their hormone levels were the same as other women. And we use gender affirming care, like, you know, lots of men and women use steroids when they're working out. This is a subject that I don't feel like I'm the best to speak about, quite honestly. I'm not trans. Yeah. I'm part of the queer community, but I do believe that this has been politicized in a way that really is unnecessary and doesn't affect the greater good of humanity. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is one of the things that is so easy to then find like these divisive, and if we were to look at people's humanity and say like, I mean, if you want to know how my full answer, I think sports as a whole are really counterproductive to healthy behavior. I think the idea of like, you know, working out is healthy. I think competition on some level is healthy, but I think it really pushes this idea of more than other things, toxic masculinity. I think that it pushes a lot of dangerous actions for our bodies when you look at things like football and the amount of people's injuries when it comes to their brains. You know, we're talking about predators. They're in everything. And it's all about making money at the end of the day. And I think it's the same thing with the conversation of trans people in sports, where, again, I'm not the best person to talk about this. But I do think it's such a small percentage of people that are even trying to be in the sports world that are trans. And I think this is maybe a good antidote, is that as a queer kid, I was bullied relentlessly. And I wasn't out when I was growing up. It was very scary to be queer and be out. You know, I remember kids threatening me on a daily basis with physical violence, not just words. And it made me hate school. It made me hate my sport. I was a competitive swimmer. I got recruited to college and I quit sooner than I probably would have if I had not gone through all the bullying every day at practice. When you're afraid to go into the locker room and change, you don't want to be there, even if it's your favorite thing in the world. You know, and I just think a lot of people haven't realized how hard it is to not fit into the heteronormative ideas that you're supposed to in this world as a kid, and how that really sets you up for the rest of your life to kind of be taken out of things that you really love. You know, like I just think about how I loved swimming so much. I was so good at it. I had the ability to swim up 2 levels because I was advancing quickly, and I just hated going to practice. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be in the pool swimming. It's because I didn't want to be with the kids who were making my life hell.
Barrett, we thank you so much for your time today. And as we wrap up, I'm thinking about whether it's the modeling industry or all these young kids who are beautiful and want to be seen and want to share their talents, to kids making videos online and wanting to go viral. You've been in so many different pockets of mainstream culture and the culture that so many young kids aspire to be in. But you also have a heart for protecting kids and you talk to parents. What would you say, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but like your 3 biggest pieces of advice, like the drive away from this podcast, parents saying, all right, I'm going to have this. These are my 3 big things to talk to my kids about.
To kids or parents? To kids.
I would say to kids.
Yeah.
I guess the first thing that's kind of the umbrella to all of this is please don't be afraid to talk to your children. They are so much smarter than you realize, and they're probably smarter than you when it comes to technology, and the things that you think they're not being exposed to, they've already been exposed to. Like if you're worried about them seeing something, they probably have already seen it. So you're already a step behind the game. So play catch up and play catch up quickly, because they're being exposed fast, and it's sneaky in things like Roblox. Like I didn't even know the extent of that. The other thing is that kids are not content. And as much as you love your kids, and I get the fact that you are proud of them and you want to show them to the world, and again, like they're your kids. I understand, like, especially for moms, like you held that child in your belly for a lot of moms, not all moms, but a lot of moms. And this is a huge part of you. The safety of your child is so much more important than showing them off to the world. And they do not have the ability to consent in an informed way, and they are not adults. And a lot of these kids who are all over the internet when they were very, very young are growing up and very, very angry at their families because their whole lives have been exposed and they didn't have a choice in that. And now they're fighting to have these laws put into effect so that they could at least maybe remove some of the stuff. There's a heartbreaking story of one girl who's like, I would really encourage parents to think about when it comes to their kids is just, again, like setting up real rules and guidelines and having boundaries with these platforms, because the platforms aren't going to do that for you. They're going to pretend that they're doing that. It's all fun and games, right? But these child safety things, there's still so many ways around those. And I'm going to add one more thing, is that there needs to be, again, this is not going to feel good to the kids. And I frankly, I don't care, but like your kids should not be playing online with people they don't know, and that internet feature where they can just kind of play with any random person anywhere, because predators are using that every day so easily, and they are figuring out where you live, because a lot of these predators are great at computer hacking, and it's not safe. I feel like people think I'm like exaggerating and a little bit crazy, but like it is not safe. And I grew up not being allowed to have my last name on the back of my sweatshirt so people couldn't call me at a mall. Now people are throwing their kids' faces, names, schools, their homes, everything online, and then going, oh, but it's not my job to worry about the predators. It's parent shaming to tell us that we need kids offline, where I'm like, is it parent shaming or is it protecting your kids? Like if you don't have anything to post besides your kids, like I say this with a lot of love, like get a hobby. There's so many wonderful things that we want to see you and your joys and your passions about. Like I love crocheting. I love plants. I would happily watch a mom talk about her plants and her crochet over posting her newborn baby eating bananas, which we have been told is a huge weird fetish for these predators.
Yeah, he's so eloquent and nice. And I have many other words for them. Mine wouldn't be go crochet. Mine would be bleep, 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 before I bleep, 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 bleep. Before she bleep, 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 bleep. Wow, Barrett. Yeah. You're amazing.
You are amazing. And we thank you for taking your time to join us today. We follow you. We really appreciate the content you create, the conversations you stir up. This podcast is about having many different types of conversations with many different types of people, and expanding the types of conversations we can have, and hopefully figuring out what we have in common and what solutions are on the table for everyone. And I think you do that beautifully. So we thank you and we wish you all the best.
But I want to do one thing. He's got to get a copy of your book.
I will send you a copy of it.
You have to read her book, The Online World. I'm so bad. I'm constantly promoting it. But I really think maybe like version 2 includes some comments from Barrett.
I would love it.
On his perspective of what we believe is the strategy. Please. Yeah.
I love it. I'm all for it. I think the only way we're going to really make change in the world is by working together. I say we're stronger together, and I fully mean it. And the last thing that I just want to kind of leave on like, I guess a little bit of a suspense cliffhanger is that coming up around probably this fall, I have a really big project I've been working on for longer than 2 years. That's going to be whistleblowing on something really big and really scary, but it's important.
And you heard it on the Balanced Voice podcast.
Keep us posted. Yes. Back in the fall. We'll talk about it.
Did we get an exclusive?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't make any promises. There's a lot of moving pieces with this thing that are very, very like, I'm talking big. I'm talking real, like bigger than anything I've ever done.
In Balenciaga.
Possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
Barrett, you're amazing.
Keep kicking ass.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. You're both amazing. I really am so grateful for both of you and all the work you do as well. Again, this is a team thing, and we don't all have to be on the exact same team, but I think that we can find places to meet and have a hug and a conversation. So thank you.
Barrett, thank you. We appreciate you so much. We'll see you another time on the Balanced Voice podcast. And to everybody else, take care. We'll catch you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Rania's work by following her at The Rania Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.